All right, let's talk about the biggest expense that will derail your retirement. I'm not talking about a mortgage. I'm not talking about student loan debt. I'm not even talking about health insurance, which is really big, but I am talking about the need to pay for your long-term care. Now, wait a second. I'm not going to tell you to buy a long-term care insurance policy, but we are going to go through a detailed analysis of why you need to understand how much long-term care costs today in America and what that's going to look like in the future, because it could derail your retirement. Let me show you exactly what I mean. This is a Barron's article. It says this: he spent $500,000, that is 5 zeros after 5, on long-term care for his wife. How you can prepare for the cost. Let me show you. Lou Torres had known for years that his wife Carol had dementia and might end up in a long-term care facility. So he increased her savings rate as he gradually became Carol's 24-hour caregiver. 24-hour caregiver. I didn't know what was coming, but I knew it would be expensive, he said. In 2020, the task of taking care of his wife became too much for Lou. He was doing what we call informal care. You have different types of long-term care. The most common is informal care, meaning you take care of a spouse, or your spouse takes care of you, or a child takes care of you, or a cousin, or an aunt, or a friend takes care of you. That is called informal care. It costs much less. Now, when you go to formal care, the costs go up dramatically. So, in 2020, the task of taking care of his wife became too much. Now, by the time she had died last year, the couple had spent nearly $500,000 on her care. I want you that to sink in for a second. $500,000 for her care. Now, what do you need to do to prepare to make sure that you have enough money to pay for your care? Let's run through some stats real quick, because I want to talk about how long-term care could derail your retirement. Now, consider this: only 11% of individuals today in America have long-term care insurance, and there's good reason for that. Long-term care insurance is expensive, and if you don't use it at the end of your life, the money that you spent is just wasted. Now, it is insurance, just like your home insurance or your car insurance. You don't necessarily want to use it, but because of the cost, only 11% of individuals have long-term care insurance. Now, long-term care, the amount of time that you would be in long-term care, the average is 18 months. Now, 1 out of 3 individuals will need some sort of long-term care, like Carol in the video today, where you have a nurse who is taking care of you 24/7. That's 1 out of 3. But 2 out of 3 individuals will need some sort of care, whether that's informal care, spouse taking care of a spouse, a child taking care of a parent. That's informal care. 2 out of 3 individuals will need some sort of care, maybe assisted living, maybe home health care. And this is what Fidelity says, not what Drew says, but Fidelity says a single person needs to plan for about $250,000 in healthcare related costs from age 65 on. A couple, $500,000 needs to be allocated for your health care cost in retirement, and that's not talking about long-term care. That's just talking about health insurance, copays, deductibles, surgeries, all the costs that come with your health insurance, which is why it is so vitally important to have a plan. So let's go through a financial EKG. Let's look at how you can have a plan for long-term care. Oh, and by the way, for all of you getting ready to comment that Medicare will take care of my long-term care, you're right. Medicare will take care of your long-term care for about 100 days. After 100 days, they're like, see you later. God bless you. Good luck to you. All right, let's look at the scenario for Jerry, and Sarah Brickman. Now, what we're looking at is their healthcare expenses. So that's what we're going to focus on in this EKG, because I want to show you the actual cost of long-term care, how it can really derail your retirement, and what do you need to be thinking about when it comes to your healthcare planning in retirement. So the first place I want to go is the tab number 9 in the EKG. That's the long-term care tab. And I want to look at what the cost of long-term care is. So Jerry and Sarah, they live in the great state of Iowa. Them Cornhuskers or those Cyclones, depending on if you're an Iowa or Iowa State fan. I like Iowa. Mark Stoops, the head football coach of Kentucky, went there, so we thank you for that. We're looking at long-term care costs. Now, this is the current year. That's 2024. The current monthly long-term care cost for a nursing home in Iowa is $7,452 a month. Okay, that's a month. The daily cost for long-term care in Iowa is about $250 a day. Okay? The cost is increasing by about 3.07% per year. Now, we need to look at this from Jerry's age to when he gets to 80. Okay, because 80 is approximately when most people are going to need some sort of care. So right now, Jerry's 60 years old. So we've got 20 years before we have projected out long-term care. So let's go back to the tab and let's look at this. When Jerry's 80, the projected future monthly cost of long-term care at his age, $13,936. You might as well round that up. $14,000 a month in long-term care cost. The future daily cost, $465. That's compound interest, guys. Working. I always say God's greatest gift outside of Jesus is compound interest. It can also work on the negative side, like health insurance, like debt. It also works really well within your 401k, so make sure you're putting money in, you're consistently contributing. Let that compound interest work. So the projected lifetime expense for Jerry, if he were to go into long-term care, $698,000. So the question is, Jerry, you got $698,000 lying around 80 years old to take care of you. Because here's what I don't want to see happen. I don't want the state to decide where you're going to go. I want to have a plan for you. Because I've seen what happens when there is no plan, and I don't want that for you. So what we can do, we can look at the median cost in 2023. So here's the updated cost. Here's community and assisted living cost. Here's nursing home. So let's go down here and let's go to 80 and let's throw in some long-term care. Now we're going to put 4 years of care for Jerry on here. Keep in mind, if you have Parkinson's or dementia or one of these Alzheimer's, one of these diseases that's becoming more common, it doesn't necessarily kill your body right away, right? You might live a lot longer than you expect with the disease. So in their case, when Jerry goes into long-term care, they've got about $1.4 million in assets. But after 4 years of care, it drops down to $847,000, which is just fine. But at 88 years old, based on their current expenses, they're out of money. Now, they still have the house, which they could have used the house for long-term care if they needed it, but where's Sarah going to live if they use the house, right? A lot of people say, well, I'm going to use my house as a piggy bank for long-term care. Where's your spouse going to go? Were they going to move in with the kids? Maybe. Maybe if you kick them kids out at 40 because they didn't want to get out of the basement, it's your turn to go live with them now. But we need to have a plan for that. That's why it's really, really important. So let's look at the second thing when we're building these out. Let's go to expenses. Because expenses is where you really get an idea of what your current healthcare costs are going to be, because those play into your overall care cost and how much you're going to have at projected such and such date, right? So let's look at this. So a couple things that are really important to project out and calculate when you're looking at your expenses. And you can put these in Excel, you can put these in whatever software you want, but these are really, really important. And if you're not calculating these, it could cause your retirement to not be the success story that you want it to be because you're not calculating correctly. So the first thing you always want to calculate when you're thinking about your healthcare cost in retirement is your IRMA. IRMA is the cost that you pay for Medicare that comes out of your Social Security check. If you turn 65 and you're not on Social Security yet, but you're on Medicare, you will pay Medicare, via check or whatever, for your Medicare. That's called your IRMA. So you want to calculate that in. And I'll show you what that looks like. In your IRMA, that's your Medicare Part B and D. Let me show you. Right now, the cost for your Medicare for a single person is $174.70, and that's based on an income level For joint, mean married, of $206 and below. Single people, single filers, 103 or below. So that's $174. If you have income above 206, your Part B or your IRMAA taxes start to go up, and then you actually start to pay for Part D, which is drugs, as well. And I know this is like alphabet soup. They paid Part D, came out when W was in office, so thank you, W, for Part D. But you can see how these cumulative costs go up. And so based on the EKG for them, $156,000 is what they will pay in IRMAA over the lifetime of this plan. So the question becomes, when you're building out your retirement income plan, is do you have $156,000 allocated for your health insurance cost via IRMAA, which means it's coming out of your Social Security check. So if your Social Security check's $3,000, you need to take out about $175 of that per month for IRMAA, not including taxes on top of that, okay? That needs to be calculated in. All right, the next thing you want to be thinking about when it comes to healthcare is my health insurance, okay? So for them, we're calculating in $1,000 a month for health insurance because they want a Medicare supplement. We're looking at healthcare before Medicare, which would be the Affordable Health Care Act. And then we're going to look at a Medicare supplement when they get on Medicare. You have two types of Medicare plans. You have a Medicare supplement and a Medicare Advantage plan. Basically, an easy way to understand this is a Medicare supplement, you pay a monthly premium, and most of your healthcare costs on the back end are covered. Now, long-term care, skilled nursing care, assisted living, not usually included in some of those costs, or there's limits, days limits on those costs. A Medicare Advantage plan, normally you don't pay anything up front, but all the costs are on the back end, meaning you're going to pay copays, deductibles for just about everything. So for Jerry and Sarah, they really want to pay that monthly premium and not have to worry about the health care on the back end. So that's what we're calculating in. Now, if there's a situation where they didn't have enough income or they didn't have enough money or their savings wasn't in an adequate place, but they needed to retire, then we may have to look at an Advantage plan. So it just really depends on your individual needs. Remember, we're trying to calculate all this in. IRMAA, Medicare costs, healthcare costs, all of that, because that's going to give us our projected dollar figure for what's that long-term care cost going to be. So for Medicare and health insurance, you really want to have an idea of what that cost is going to be. Now, number one was think about your IRMAA. Number two was your healthcare premiums, copays, deductibles, all that. The third thing you want to be thinking about when you're trying to protect yourself in healthcare is, do I have a bucket of money that I can use to pay for long-term care? Now, in Jerry and Sarah's case, they have a brokerage account. Inside of this brokerage account, we've got about $400,000. So we have $400,000 that they are contributing $2,000 a month to. Now, right now it's in a checking account. I'm trying to get them to put some of that in a brokerage account, get it out of checking, because just sitting in checking, it's not going to earn a whole lot. We want to put that into a vehicle. Again, it doesn't have to be super aggressive. It can be very conservative. It could be treasury bonds, CDs, high yield money markets, dividend paying stocks, whatever. Just something a little bit more conservative. Try to earn 4 to 5% a year and let $200,000, $300,000, $400,000 earn that over time so that you can have a bucket that you can pull from when you need it in retirement for long-term care. And we've done this with our clients in bucket fashions. I have a client down in Fort Myers. She's a single lady. Her husband passed away from cancer. And she said, hey, I want to make sure that my kids don't have to deal with some of the same issues that I had to deal with when I was taking care of him. So we took off about $300,000 of her non-qualified money. We set it aside, put it in a very conservative investment, and said, hey, this will be your long-term care coverage when we need it. And so that's what we're doing. But we didn't do it without building it out on the EKG to make sure it made sense. So in their case, we've got this $400,000. If we can siphon some of that off, earn a little bit more, now we have a bucket of money that we can pull from for long-term care. Here's the thing to think about too. Keep in mind, if we use these 401k dollars for long-term care, you're going to pay taxes on that money, right? Money coming out of 401k is ordinary income, or IRA, ordinary income. So not only is it a double whammy, not only are you paying for care, but you're raising your taxes too. Where do you think taxes are going to be in 20 years? I think they're going to be higher. And so if taxes are going to be higher in 20 years, we probably need to be looking at ways to be more tax efficient. Now, Roth conversions make a lot of sense. So these are just things that we're thinking about when we're building out the EKG, because listen, 11% of people have long-term care insurance because it's too costly. Fidelity says you're going to need $250,000 to $500,000 in healthcare costs. I mean, look at this. Lou spent $500,000 on care for his wife, which, I mean, I would spend every dime I had to take care of my wife. And I understand exactly why Lou did it. And they worked with a financial professional, if you read the full article, and they had the means to do it because they were preparing for it long before. And keep in mind, MarketWatch says this: Americans are more afraid of running out of money than death. Well, if you run out of money, how are you going to pay for your care before you die? That's something we've really got to think about. And so I'm hoping that this video is just planting some seeds in your mind to say, we need to do this. We need to think about this. This needs to be in our plan. This doesn't need to be something that we just kind of put on the back burner, but it needs to be in our plan. So that's what we do for Jerry and Sarah. So when you look at their retirement, you just kind of look at the overall plan. They're in a good spot. Like, they don't ever run out of money, but what would a $400,000 or $500,000 long-term care cost do to this overall plan? That's where we go to tab number 9. And it drops them down to 88. So instead of having about $1 million at 100, we got 0 at 88. That's a 12-year change. And what if both of them need care? That's what you got to plan for. I hope you're doing that. Thank you so much for watching today. God bless. Bye-bye.